may think you are watching an ordinary basketball game. You are not. The players may look like any others you have seen. They are not. You are about to witness a truly unusual event. What is this game of the year, and why is it so different? To answer these questions, we must examine the boys who play and the girls who cheer them. They are the reason. They are mentally retarded. In body, they are young men and women. In mind, they are and will always be boys and girls. Mental retardation, striking 3 out of every 100 people. A mentally retarded baby is born every 15 minutes. One will be born while you are watching this film. Of all of the handicaps that plague children, mental retardation is by far the most common. The mentally retarded are now being helped to take a useful place in society, and that place is out among people, where they can be guided into useful and productive pursuits. The parents of these young people are most concerned about the acceptance of their children by the public, about the correcting of false impressions of mental retardation. They are the ones who created the game of the year, so that you and I can get to know their children and others like them better. This game was held in Everett, Washington, a sensitive and generous city which rose to a challenge presented by the parents of its retarded children. The city was constantly kept aware of the activity that was about to occur by a continual and generous coverage by the local newspaper, the Everett Daily Herald. Right before and after the game, a day did not go by without comprehensive headlines and stories in the paper. From the moment the first group arrived in a bustle of excitement until they were seen happily on their way home, people and groups from all around pitched in to make this occasion the success that it was. Singular among the contributions was that made by the Washington area of the Fraternal Order of Eagles. They fed, housed, and entertained their guests, helped raise money, and even put on a parade. These young people, who were the first to arrive, came from over 300 miles away. They are students of Lakeland Village in eastern Washington, a school headed by Mr. L.F. Mason. They arrived on the afternoon before the big day. Among the many business concerns that gave support to the game of the year was the Scott Paper Company. The visitors enjoyed a pleasant and leisurely dinner in the Scott cafeteria, their first night in Everett. Mental retardation knows no boundary of race, creed, or color. A mentally retarded child is one whose mind develops more slowly. It is not a disease and cannot be cured like one, although retarded persons can be helped. But the individuals you are seeing are useful, are productive human beings in many ways, and we are about to see some of the things they can do. The second group came from the Rainier School in Buckley, which is in western Washington, a school headed by Dr. Leslie White. They, along with the Lakeland Village group, were greeted and served lunch by the American Legion and the West Everett Lions. Other community groups entertained the visitors at various times during their stay. The Everett Elks were one such group. They, with the assistance of students from Everett High School, put on a dance. This was a very revealing experience for the high school students, an experience from which perhaps all of us could profit. One girl said, "While I was dancing with one of the boys, I had difficulty realizing he was any different from me. But when we were through dancing and we left the floor hand in hand, I felt somehow just a little older." The game of the year provided many fine experiences for these young people that would normally be missing from their institutional lives. Not only do they get to travel and see new places and meet new people, but they have a chance to associate with others like themselves from quite another place far away. How reassuring to know that there are many like yourself here and a long way from here, and maybe not quite as good a basketball player as you. Everyone loves a parade. This the Eagles and the retarded children's parents knew. So on the afternoon of the big day, they held one right down the main streets of Everett. And the city of Everett turned out in great style to watch. The tremendous support behind the Game of the Year was reflected by the impressive list of civic leaders who rode in the parade. Important people, including the governor of the state and the mayor of the city. Surely many were impressed with the clean-cut good looks of the basketball players. This float, the only one in the parade, was made by the Alpha Nu Alpha Guild of WARC. It is interesting to note that it featured the retarded children themselves. And they were not on display there as if to say, look, I'm retarded and you can hardly tell. They were there to advertise a game between their school and another, and to urge attendance at that game, just like other schools and other students, and that's the way it should be. Students of the Everett schools played a prominent role in the parade through the presence of several bands and drill teams. The Everett High Band and the girls' drill team, called the Seagulls, not only put on a splendid performance in the parade, but also acted as hosts for their guests throughout the visit. And they've embraced the cause of greater understanding of the mentally retarded throughout their school and school activities. The Eagles of the state of Washington turned out in force to make the parade a success. Marching units, bands, drum and bugle corps, and novelty acts came from all over western Washington to make it a really fine and impressive spectacle. And yet, at all times, the crowd was not allowed to forget that this parade was for the benefit of the Game of the Year. This was the site of the program, Everett Civic Auditorium, one of the many fine facilities provided by the Everett School District. Here, the community would continue to show its warmth and sensitivity by producing a packed house. The big moment was about to arrive. But the curtain was not going up at first on a basketball game, rather on a bonus stage show made up of song and dance acts prepared by both schools. This is Dr. Leslie Venables, chairman of the Game of the Year Committee, who introduced the Master of Ceremonies, a man who had recently returned as victorious coach of the Rose Bowl winning Washington Huskies football team, Mr. Jim Owens.
Tonight, I present you with great pleasure the head football coach and director of athletics of the University of Washington, Mr. Jim Owens.
Thank you, Doctor. Ladies and gentlemen, it's certainly a pleasure for me to be here this evening. Like a great number of you, this is the first opportunity we've had to witness a wonderful program like this. Your tremendous reception this evening will mean a great deal. I know this wonderful crowd that's here is already indicative of how you feel about this particular program. My chief function, of course, is to introduce each number, and that's exactly what I will do. Without further ado, I know that you will receive each individual person and group with greater enthusiasm than any other affair that you've attended in an awfully long time. I know that you will.
The participation in this program of people like Jim Owens demonstrates how well it is accepted and supported by persons of prominence. Mr. Owens introduced one excellent number after another, like these put on by the Lakeland Village students. The performance you are seeing proves that the mentally retarded can be pretty good dancers. And they can do many other useful things if given half a chance. The numbers Jim Owens introduced from the Rainier School were equally impressive. And we conclude our review of the stage show with this men's chorus from Rainier. At the end of the stage show, the audience moved to the gymnasium, which is behind the auditorium. There they were to witness a basketball game that had all of the action and excitement of any other you've seen. Perhaps the maturity of coordination did not match the maturity of the bodies of the players, but that was not important. We all do some things well and others not quite so well. The important thing is that we can do something and do it successfully. Lakeland Village won over Rainier by a score of 37-21. But who won is not as important as the playing of the game and the good sportsmanship involved. Therefore, trophies were awarded to both first and second place teams, and the trophies would be conversation pieces for both schools for months to come. Schools like Lakeland Village and Rainier can house only about 10% of our mentally retarded. Too many of the rest are kept locked away from sight, locked away from the happy, profitable lives they might lead. They can be unlocked by your understanding and your support of the growing number of organizations and agencies that work in their behalf. Organizations like the parents who sponsored this film, known as the Washington Association for Retarded Children, part of a greater national organization. Retarded children can be helped by people like me and you.